All right. Welcome to the All Pro Team podcast. I'm Chris Reynolds. This is Dwayne Hicks. And today we're going to talk a little bit about finances. It's a pretty crazy time.
Yeah.
Everybody's watching the news. Everybody's watching the market. And frankly, they're discouraged, probably for the most part. But we got some tips for you today that I think can help you. So what do you think about it, man? Knowing everything going on, what's some direction here that we can offer, the people that we work with?
Well, first of all, I think we need to talk about what a recession is. And a recession is kind of like the pressure release valve on an Instapot, where it lets the pressure off a little bit. And recessions are not necessarily horrible, but they're different. And the definition of a recession is 2 consecutive quarters of no growth or kind of losses to the U.S. economy. And we have had 2 of those.
Yeah.
So whether or not people say it on the news, it's okay. But it's not the end of the world. The sky's not falling. But I do think there are some things that people can do to get ready for it. And you and I are both huge Dave Ramsey fans.
Yeah.
Dave's been saying for years, save, and use cash. Don't use credit. Don't be a slave to the lender, and all those things. And people that are in a good, strong position with no debt are way better than those who are carrying a heavy load of debt.
Well, I would even say during times like this, if you listen to that type of advice, these couple quarters don't hurt you as bad.
That's right.
Because you kind of prepared, not for doomsday, but, hey, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Been here, done that.
The rainy day scenario.
Yes, that's right.
You carry an umbrella because it's going to rain.
That's it.
And so, but that's kind of what the recession is doing. But for the people, I think Warren Buffett's one that said, when the tide goes out, you can see who's been swimming naked. And so it's kind of a comical picture.
Quote that.
Comical picture of people who are over leveraged.
Yeah.
Or kind of thinking that nothing's ever going to change, and they just keep borrowing. And so I don't feel comfortable ever recommending people become a slave to someone else. There are situations with mortgages and so forth. I get it. I think that is a different kind of debt than consumer debt. Consumer debt's where you swipe those cards and you kind of lose track of it. And you don't feel it as much when you use a card or whatever versus pulling cash out of your wallet. And so I think there's some tips, though, that people can do to kind of shore things up. And even if they start today, I don't think it's going to make national news for probably another quarter.
Sure.
I mean, the news is going to be what the news is and do what they do. But if you get 3 months of expenses saved, you will be way ahead of probably 70% of the population.
For sure.
Dave Ramsey advocates $1,000 emergency fund, rainy day fund, or whatever you want to call it, because there's going to be emergencies and it's going to rain.
Yeah.
And so, and then as you get that emergency fund, the next step is 3 months or 5 months of emergency fund. So it's really, this 3 months number is a really good round number. If you own a business, you probably ought to have 3 months saved up in your business.
Sure, yeah.
As well. So, but I also think that this housing market, from a consumer standpoint and from a professional person who works in the housing industry, people that are waiting around for these prices to change, I don't see it changing a lot.
Yeah.
I think there are some adjustments and corrections happening, but people that have been protective of their money are going to win. Yeah, they're going to win every time. I was in a realtor group last week for a realtor luncheon, and we had like 7 or 8 lenders as a panel, and they were asked a question: which of these 3 are most important? A good credit score, a good job, or cash on hand? And the answer was cash on hand.
Cash is king, baby.
Well, because it puts you in you're investing in it with the lender.
Yeah. Instead
of them carrying everything, you've at least got some pain or some skin in the game, if you will. And so that's a huge part of it. And so I think for the person out there trying to buy or sell, the first thing you do is kind of get your financial house in order. And you don't go dip into your emergency fund, in my opinion, for your down payment.
Right.
That's not an emergency.
Right.
That's a want. That's a desire. It's a wish. And I get it. It's a dream. But at the same time, I think you have to have the right number of financial things in place before you go to – because, for example, your utility bills can be out of whack and cost you money and knock your budget sideways. Yeah. And so I think it's important just to count all the costs before jumping off that cliff and,
Yeah.
and purchasing. You know that we love selling houses. We love helping people find a home that they go, man, I'm going to raise my kids here, and
Yeah.
I'm going to write their story in that house, and that just feels good to drive by months later and see the swing on the porch
Yeah.
and the kids playing in the backyard and stuff. But man, what's sad though is when people take on too much and
Yeah.
they drown and they can't manage all of it, and it costs them years.
Well, we don't want to be a part of that story either.
No.
You know, like you're helping build dreams, and then to see somebody get caught up and outstretch themselves because you don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. You don't
right.
know financially. You can have a good point of history of what it looks like, but we're not promised anything tomorrow.
That's right.
And so I think being in this industry, it's amazing to get to see the fun times, but we don't want to see somebody lose that either. It's the
right.
biggest investment that you could make, you know.
All right. One of the things that we kind of chose as when we're working with lenders, as our team starts working with lenders, is that we don't want lenders that will try to sell, or
Yeah.
upsell, or push and say, well, you can afford a $350,000 house
Right.
when they can't barely afford a $275
Right.
house. And I remember dealing with a lender several years ago, and he just felt a little bit like a used car salesman.
Yeah.
Like, dude, I need somebody that's going to really help people and be honest and truthful.
Integrity.
Yes,
sure.
And so the lenders that the All Pro team recommend fits that
Yep.
category. They have integrity. They're not trying to upsell or
Right.
kind of push people beyond their limits just
Yeah.
because they look good on paper.
Sure.
Because they still got to go to Kroger and buy food,
Yeah.
or Publix or
Yeah,
whatever.
right.
Because we all got to eat.
And Lord, that is not cheap
That's
at
exactly
all.
right. It's went way
Yes,
way north
yes.
with the inflation. The good news is though, some of the sources I'm seeing inflation kind of capped out last month. If that's actual, it's kind of hard to know
Yeah.
what the stats are and who to trust or what to think. But if inflation did stop moving up last month, that's a good thing. Maybe it will settle back down. Maybe the rates will not keep climbing.
Right.
And maybe this economy will find some normalcy
Yeah.
and balance itself out a little bit. And so maybe food costs will go down.
Oh,
And
Lord,
we can
help
get
us.
more food for the family.
Yeah, well, and I don't need more food, but it is very expensive to eat healthy, so I'm dealing with that right now. But I will say, just on top of this financial conversation, I know as a team, what's amazing about working in one accord is this isn't just something that we're telling them they should do. This is something that we believe in,
We practice.
and we do it. And there's a reason why when the market plays a little bit, there's not panic, and we can still serve you consistently, because it's not about if this goes good or this deal doesn't happen. We're okay. Like, we want to be there to serve and not just sell.
That's right.
I mean, really, at the end of the day.
Absolutely. And that there's a difference
Oh,
in
for
how
sure.
that feels to the average consumer, and that's what I want them to feel from us. If you want somebody that's going to turn the screws on you and put pressure on you,
Yeah.
we're not that group.
That's not us.
to do that. But I think it's also important that just in every area of, as you walk through this process, get as much information, education,
Mm-hmm.
kind of understanding. We work in this space every day.
Yeah.
And a buyer or seller works in it whenever they're ready to sell or ready to
Sure.
buy. And so, and then the other thing is try to look to local sources for your data for the local market
Yep.
strategies. And because what's happening in Atlanta is likely not happening in Carrollton.
Yeah.
Or even what's happening in Douglasville, which is a neighboring city, is not happening in
That's right.
Carrollton. So I think the people can find local realtors that they trust and know and live here and work here and serve
Right.
here. I think you get way better service that
Yeah.
way. I think real estate's always going to be local.
Well, when they can see you in the grocery store on a Sunday,
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to get a little more comfort out of that with your lenders, with construction, with everything. When it's a family unit, hopefully everybody has the integrity enough to their name means something to them, and so it's good to stay local for sure.
Absolutely.
So our biggest takeaway is 3 months, but you got to start somewhere.
That's right.
So if you don't have it now, still work towards it. And ultimately, before you ever sit down with us, that's the number one thing we're always going to ask about financing. Have you talked to a lender? But we have incredible lenders we work with that we can recommend and help them get to that starting point.
Absolutely. And that's the key is you don't have to be great to start, but in order to start, if you want to be great, you've got to start somewhere.
Right.
So you have to start to be great.
Yeah.
But you don't have to be great to get started.
Yeah.
So if you're not good at saving, just start somewhere, even if it's $50 from the next pay period, and then maybe a pay period later it's $100, and start snowballing a little bit. You have to start somewhere, and the little percentages are significant.
Yeah.
Just get started, because it's a discipline.
And shout out to Dave Ramsey.
Heck yeah.
Start there. If you need, there's a bunch of resources out there. It kind of helps put some teeth to what we're talking about.
That guy really spoke into me when we came out of the Great Recession, and just the principles he teaches are the truth, and they're real. And I'm a huge fan of his. He's a country boy from Tennessee, but the man's got some wisdom, and he lives what he teaches.
Yeah.
And so it's really helped to change my perspective and kind of change my family's future, because I started practicing these disciplines. And I don't really try to impress other people. I'd rather impress upon them instead of impress them.
Yeah, that's good.
I'd impress a truth upon them. And so he kind of reminded me not to ever try to impress people I don't know or like.
Yeah.
I kind of thought,
smart.
That is pretty cool. That's pretty good counsel. So that's kind of how we at the All Pro team kind of operate our financial picture, and kind of how we're responding to this recession. Is that we're not going to be fearful of it. We're not going to cower. We are going to be proactive and try to keep doing the principles that help you get through that.
Perfect. Well, that's incredible. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. Hopefully it gives you something to take away, and we can learn together as we approach what is to come in this economy. But at the end of the day, we're here. We want to be a part of your story, and we'd love to serve you like we feel like God's called us to serve you. And just appreciate all that wisdom about finances, man. It's fantastic. Man.